Hello everyone, my name is Joel Dunham, and I'm here to talk to you about LingSync, a collection of applications for linguistic fieldwork. Here is the outline for my portion of the tutorial. First I will tell you what LingSync is and why it was created. Then I will show you how to use LingSync. Then we will use what we learned in the How-To section to try our hands at creating a corpus as a group. I will then discuss some components and features that are currently being developed. This should give you a sense of where LingSync is going and our vision for what it will become. It will also be informative to those who might want to contribute to the project or facilitate interoperability between it and other tools. I will begin with the what and the why. The LingSync URL, lingsync.org, is the hub for all things LingSync related. There you will find, among other things, links to further documentation. Here's the official one-sentence description. LingSync is a free tool for creating and maintaining a shared database for communities, linguists, and language learners. Essentially, LingSync is linguistic fieldwork software that focuses on collaborative data creation and maintenance, and on making data accessible, shareable, and reusable. I would like to briefly introduce myself so you can understand my role with respect to LingSync. While a graduate student, I built the Online Linguistic Database, or OLD, another application for collaborative linguistic fieldwork. A major component of the OLD is the Morphological Parser Creator, an application for building morphological parsers using finite state tools, n-gram language models, and the data in a collaboratively created fieldwork database. In my current work at Concordia, I am building a new interface for LingSync, which is called Dative, and which will include the good features of the existing LingSync interfaces and of the OLD, in particular the Morphological Parser Creator. I will discuss this further in the Feature Developments portion of the presentation. The problem that LingSync is designed to address is essentially that linguistic fieldwork is hard. The insight is that by making it easier to do fieldwork collaboratively, and by providing computational conveniences, for example, morphological parsing, we can make it somewhat less hard. We can define linguistic fieldwork as working with speakers to generate artifacts that encode knowledge of a language, of a particular language. And when the language of study is endangered, there are fewer speakers, less data, and an increased urgency. As an aside, LingSync can of course be used for fieldwork on languages that are not endangered. It's just that the endangered languages context is a key factor motivating the creation of LingSync. We can identify three broad reasons for pursuing fieldwork on endangered languages. First, there is a desire to document and preserve the world's decreasing linguistic diversity. Second, there is a desire to revitalize waning and sleeping languages. Finally, linguists want to study endangered languages in order to better understand the possibility space of human language. Fieldwork is hard, and fieldwork on endangered languages is even harder. Linguistic fieldwork, in the broad sense, requires both linguistic aptitude and expertise, as well as a good deal of social intelligence and interpersonal skills. As if that alone were not a rare enough combination, endangered languages fieldwork requires, in addition, balancing the requirements for academic success with the expectations of the speaker and the language community, and dealing with data scarcity. But we can mitigate the difficulties of resource scarcity and the balancing of conflicting requirements by creating tools that allow us to share and reuse data so that more data are available, and so that non-academic interests can more easily be served by those data. Having defined fieldwork as the generation of artifacts, we can identify two broad types: primary data and higher-level artifacts. Primary data are transcriptions, translations, morphological analyses, morphemes, audio and video recordings, images as stimuli or as representations of contexts, metadata, that is who, where, and when, and analytical representations such as phrase structure trees. By higher-level artifacts, I am referring to things like descriptive grammars, dictionaries, pedagogical materials, and research papers, as well as language learning software and texts representing stories and narratives. The green boxes in this slide represent the primary fieldwork data that underlie all of these higher-level artifacts. This is what tends to happen when a linguist fieldworker writes a research paper. We draw on our own fieldwork data, but we also draw on the data in descriptive grammars, dictionaries, and pedagogical materials. However, it would also be highly useful to be able to draw upon the unpublished primary data that underlie these higher-level artifacts. This type of data flow, the type that ought to be happening more often, is indicated by red arrows. Analogously, a fieldworker writing a grammar may draw on the published sources of her fellow fieldworkers, but would also benefit from easy access to the primary data that underlie those higher-level artifacts. And the same can be said for the educator fieldworker. Now, this is what tends to happen by default. Fieldworkers may, on occasion, request access to the data stores and field notes of their peers. But for a number of reasons, this rarely works well. Making your primary data accessible to others is burdensome, and accessing the primary data of your peers requires numerous petitions, requests, and this is further complicated by the fact that data are often in a state of flux, and different fieldworkers use different formatting conventions. One of the major goals of LingSync is to make it easier to share data and create datasets collaboratively. If fieldworkers could all contribute to a centralized database that helped them with their tasks, and which also made their data accessible and useful to their peers, the whole system should run more smoothly for everyone. Now, you might wonder whether data sharing is really going to have much of an impact, especially from the theoretical linguist's point of view, where we often associate fieldwork with asking very particular questions about esoteric constructions. It might seem that only our own fieldwork data will be of much use. However, I think that this data sharing is beneficial, and the main reason for this is the fact that, at least in the endangered languages context, the data are so scarce. This quote summarizes the state of First Nations languages in British Columbia, but a similar generalization holds all over North America and elsewhere. Many of the languages that we study have very few speakers, hundreds, dozens, or even fewer. And the data are scarce. There is very little written or audio recorded data. In fact, in some contexts, the fieldwork performed by academics and or community-based fieldworkers generates the majority of the data on these languages. So here's the vision that LingSync seeks to realize. Imagine you had easy and unified access to your own fieldwork data and the data of your peers, including crucially the unpublished data that underlie the higher-level artifacts just discussed. LingSync is designed so that descriptive linguists, software developers, teachers, and theoretical linguists can share their data and collaborate to their mutual advantage. LingSync allows multiple users to contribute simultaneously to a shared access corpus. Parts of it, the software is open source. So besides being free of cost, this means that its inner workings are easily inspected. It can be improved or altered by others. Parts of it can be used in other software, and its life is not tied to a particular organization or individual. In order to make data sharing truly possible, it's important that the software work on all major computing platforms so that fieldworkers are not left out of the loop by technical circumstance. Since LingSync has web application interfaces that run in a web browser, this is not an issue. LingSync is also a web service with a consistent API. This means that its data and functionality are highly reusable, for example by other applications such as a language learning tool or an online dictionary tool, or for export, etc. Finally, LingSync has a permission system that allows users to control who has access to which data. Here's an overview of how LingSync works. Using LingSync, a fieldworker can create a corpus to house their data. Then other fieldworkers can create corpora for their data. A fieldworker may then grant access at various levels to his or her corpus. For example, she may grant read-only access to certain users, read-write access to other users, administrator access to others, and no access to everyone else. A fieldworker may also specify that her LingSync corpus be made public, so everyone can see it. It is also possible to encrypt parts of your data, for when more fine-grained privacy is needed. LingSync also has version control, so whenever a change is made, previous state is saved. This means that changes can be undone if needed. By allowing such fine-grained control over access, and by implementing version control, LingSync balances the need for collaboration, data sharing, and data reuse with the requirement, whether it be from speakers, language communities, or fieldworkers themselves, that some or all of the data be kept private. Of course, a given user may also have more than one corpus used for different purposes or languages and with different permission settings. Another way of understanding LingSync is as a hierarchical tree structure. A user can create any number of corpora. The creator of a corpus is automatically an administrator of that corpus. An administrator can grant other users access to a corpus under his administration. The data in each corpus are divided into sessions. Every piece of data belongs to one and only one session. A session is meant to represent an elicitation session. For a session, one can specify metadata like goal, consultants, language, dialect, and date elicited. So thank you, everyone. That was the why and what is LingSync portion of the tutorial.